Thank you for joining us on this special program, Dialogues Between World Laureates and Gen Z. And today we have 5 sets of distinguished global laureates, scientists, and Gen Zers joining us both online and on-site. And they'll be exploring science and its connection to the development of human civilization, promoting critical thoughts, and communicating all this in a fun and accessible manner. This event is organized by CGTN think tank, World Laureates Association Forum, and National Communication Center for Science and Technology, and the China Association for Science and Technology. Welcome, everyone. I'm Yang Zhao, the science reporter of CGTN. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I can't wait to introduce our first group of guests to all of you. They're a diverse and exciting cohort. Let's welcome Fan Xiaobo, Associate Professor at the Institute of Physics, Chinese Academy of Sciences, and Hou Xu, Professor at College of Chemistry and Chemical Engineering, Xiamen University, and Liu Pengxin, Assistant Professor at School of Physical Science and Technology, Shanghai Tech University, and he is also a science influencer on the internet. And we're really looking forward to exploring the world through your informed eyes. Over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. Today, I will be the spokesman of Generation Z because I'm also an influencer on Weibo. So my followers are usually, they're born between the year of 1995 to 2009. So they are the generation that was raised in a generation like the internet is quite rapidly developed. So my first question for 2 scientists is that, what are you working on right now?
So my research interest is focused on the bioinspire pore and channel system. So it is interdisciplinary, many related to physics, chemistry, material science, biology, and memory science and technology. So in general, it's learning from nature, which means take the idea from nature and developing novel function materials. It's based on this concept.
Your research is called responsive liquid gating, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can give us more details on this subject. What is liquid gating? How a liquid can be a gate?
Yes. So for this research, I mean, this is currently one of my main research directions. Mm-hmm. Actually, for this direction, is inspired by the science fiction movies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you have watched these movies. It's a Stargate. So
okay,
alien technology,
sure.
alien technology uses the liquid skate to set up to establish a wormhole, and for the space and time transmissions. So when I saw this movie, I was very shocked by this, these things. So I just wonder if we can build a liquid gate in our realities, But later, when I studied the physical chemistry, I know that because on the Earth, because the gravity, liquid is always dynamic. It's a mobility, so which means it cannot be hold of to fix the liquid.
Yeah.
So when I touch the micro and nano science, in the nanoscale or in microscale, because they are Kepler force, which means liquid can be held in the micro-nano confinement. Mm-hmm. So after that, I just make a liquid gating membranes.
But how do you control the opening and closing of this
That's a
liquid
good question.
gate? Yeah.
Because when we mention a gate or door, we need a key, right?
Right.
So the key in our system is the pressure. You can use pressure to push the liquid open.
I see.
And but if you release the pressure, they automatically will be closed.
I see.
Yeah.
And Xiaobo, do you have some science fiction movies or shows or animations that you are interested in?
In many these kind of movies, laser is kind of the weapons. So you can create
from lasers,
like
yes.
war like lasers or even cannons from lasers. So that's also very inspired the junior or very young scientists.
Right. So I also enjoy one recent animation. It's called Rick and Morty. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this one. Uh-huh. So in the Rick and Morty animation, it's also kind of the same concept that the grandpa has a Apollo gun. And in the polygon, there is kind of a green liquid, and when he shoots at the wall would be, there will be a stain of this green liquid, and it's a gate. And through this gate, you can enter any dimensions, and you can do time travel, and so on. So for younger generations, I think the scientific movies or science fiction movies is kind of a very good chance for them to get the first idea of how science works. Maybe it's beyond our age, it's beyond the current situation. But apparently in the future, things of this kind would be reality in some days.
And it's a wonderful and enlightening discussion. From public engagement of science to the new breakthroughs inspired by sci-fi movies. I believe we all had a good time. Now let's move to the next discussion with our second group of guests and discover how interdisciplinary perspectives stimulate research. And we'll also find out how science will shape our future. Over to you now.
Morning, Professor Zier. Morning, Dr. Pineapple. Very glad to see you.
Morning.
Can you share some interesting stories in your research work, Professor Zier?
Perhaps it'd be worthwhile for me to tell you about my first experiment done about age 3. It was after I received a spanking from my father, and I was unhappy about that. And so I went and I urinated in his tropical fish aquarium. And to my surprise, it killed all his fish. This led to another spanking, but it showed me the power of chemistry right away. And made me learn something from it.
It's really very
I
interesting.
went on later on in life to still play with more things when I started cooking at about age 5 and 6 for my younger brother, my poor younger brother, who had to suffer various experiments that I would do when I cooked.
Professor Zier, we know that science is critical to our daily life. So what do you think is the value that science brings to humankind?
I tell you that science, which is really the pursuit of knowledge, of understanding things, gives us the power to deal with all types of situations that we've never faced before and have some way to overcome it. Right now we have the coronavirus situation, and yet, amazingly, quickly, again, through science, we've been able to come up with a number of different vaccines that I think are making a very big difference in being able to get through this. I'll talk again about the past. If you think long ago, there was a British person, I think his name was Malthus, who said, we're all going to run out of food. It was around the 1780s and 90s. And indeed, projecting how fast the population was growing and what the food resources of the time, he was right. We would run out of food. But what happened is, of course, we learned how to make fertilizer. And our problem is not that we don't have enough food right now, because we do. We can make plenty of food. It's that we can't necessarily distribute the food where people are hungry. And that it really is a matter of that. It becomes much more politics as to why there's starvation than it is a matter of lack of food. I hope this tries to show you the power of science. But of course, this power means you have to use it wisely, and power can also be used unwisely and cruelly. So there are many moral questions associated with it as well. It's not divorced or devoid of these questions of good and evil.
Yeah, science is different, double-edged sword, right? And also, I think that there mentioned the hunger problem in Africa. It's also because right now I'm like a full-time, I'm running a charity foundation. So I think as a research scientist, I found it's hard to, it's actually much more challenging to running a social research program, try to solve some real problems. And the charity foundation, we try to I'm trying to push the research for rare disease for kids. And the science, I think, is there. There are many diseases, single gene mutations, right? There are some solutions.
Sickle cell anemia, an example, yeah.
Yeah, there gotta be solution to them, but there's economic considerations, even politics, all those stuff between countries make it much harder to like for people to come together and try to solve the problem. So there are many things science can do. It's very powerful, but I think as a human being or humankind, we need to get together and try not to fight with each other.
So what do you think of the significance for our interdisciplinary research work?
I really am a champion of interdisciplinary work because exciting real problems, okay, do not come with the names of disciplines written on them. It requires people to have knowledge in a number of fields and put them together. It requires often mathematics to be combined with energy. Often the medical sciences, health sciences get involved, biology, chemistry, material sciences. All of this play a role often in things that happen. Mass spectrometry is such an example. You mentioned mass spectrometry. Mass spectrometry has its origins going back to the Cavendish laboratory and the discovery of the electron, et cetera, and bending things. So you say, oh, it's physics, but yet most applications of mass spectrometry are in analytical chemistry because it gives us such power of seeing things. And I predict with some confidence that mass spectrometry is going to play an increasingly important role in the hospital because it'll be able to analyze for us tissue and tell surgeons, for example, you're cutting the wrong thing, or cut some more in terms of an operation. Or look at this person we can see from some body fluid. You need now to take action to prevent the disease from happening. It's going to change the whole world of medicine coming from this knowledge from science. And it won't belong to physics, it won't belong to chemistry, it won't belong to biology, it'd be all of them. That's why I think interdisciplinary work is so important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, actually, Dr. Zare is one of the role models I have when I'm looking at your resumes. It's fascinating. Like you are not only doing interdisciplinary work, but also you are teaching with passion in the university.
I love teaching.
So I guess
I might add, my own feelings about teaching is that it's a secret weapon for doing research. I'll explain to you why I say this to you. Because when you teach something, you really wonder before you tell the class, do you really believe what you're going to say is true? How do you know it's true? Is it really true? And so forth. And that's the same type of wondering questions that drives research. So to me, they go very much together. They're not one fighting the other.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I teach in the university as well. And in my class, most of the students are not biomedicine or biology major. I teach them cancer biology and like other things. So what I found is it's interesting. They always challenge me with their majors, right? They will ask you, why in the cancer research you have to do, for example, work like this, or why is the medicine, how it's discovered, all those kind of things. As Dr. Zare said, actually, sometimes you never think so deeply. And then they will challenge you.
Thank you so much, Professor Chan, and your group who just shared with us so many interesting stories behind the discovery, and some of them really out of our expectations. Now let's move to discussion on physics and dive deep into our universe. Over to you now.
Hello, everybody. Could you please tell us about the most exciting breakthroughs in your field in the past 10 years? Most exciting.
Only 10 years. Can't I go back 20?
Okay.
So the thing that was the most important thing that I was connected to has been trying to trace out the history of cosmic expansion. We've known since the 1920s that the galaxies in the universe are moving apart, and we measure that recession. And nearby, the recession is slow. Far away, the recession is fast. It's as if the universe is expanding in all directions over time. And it turns out, after thinking a little bit about gravity, people who studied general relativity, Einstein's theory, worked out a prediction for how the universe would evolve. Einstein actually thought it would be static, but it turned out pretty quickly. People did computations that showed it could change over time. It could expand, and the expansion could slow down over time, and turn into a contraction, or it could continue indefinitely, depending on how much mass density there was in the world, in the universe. So we all thought, well, okay, let's go out and measure the mass density of the universe. And when you measure the mass density in the universe, it turns out to be a little low to slow things down, but it could be enough to kind of do that. Whereas the theorists said, no, no, no. This is a very hard measurement. You're not doing a good enough job. The answer should be exactly balanced between the gravitational attraction and the motion, because that's the best solution. I thought, well, okay, maybe that's right. But trying to make the measurement, we looked at exploding stars, which gave us the distances and velocities we measured from the light, the shift, the Doppler shift, the shift to the red shift of the light from distant objects. So we had distances and redshift, so we could plot the velocity versus time in the universe. And the big surprise was, despite what everybody told us, that the universe was not slowing down. And it wasn't really on the border either, which is what the theorists liked, that the universe was speeding up.
What is the most wanted function in your research you wish we could have just had it?
We can make something better than the Hubble Space Telescope, and that's the thing that is going to be launched in December. It's the James Webb Space Telescope, and it works in the infrared. We just heard about infrared detectors. This is a telescope that will be cold. It'll be at 70 Kelvin because it's behind a sun shield. And the detectors, of course, will be even colder than that. And it will work to detect infrared radiation. It's bigger than the Hubble Space Telescope, and it works at a wavelength that detects infrared, which is the natural emission from more distant galaxies than the Space Telescope. It's also the place where the emission from planets around other stars, which we know are real, has its maximum. So it's going to be fantastically good, both for the most distant things and then nearby to look at planets around stars in our own galaxy, which is a tremendously interesting subject.
China will launch a new space station satellite and telescope, which will be launched in 2024, which is equipped with very advanced facilities. There's two different for our telescope compared with that of the Hubble. First is that the detectors is equipped with the most advanced detectors, about 30 kind of detectors, including the visible, ultraviolet, infrared, far infrared, especially for the terahertz and dark matter detectors. A lot of things is different with that of Hubble is that the size of the optical lens, you mean the aperture in that. This kind of the size, I think, according to the report, is about 300 larger than the Hubble telescope, which was launched about 30 years ago. And since this size, a bigger size and larger size of the lens, we make us can see a lot of dim and small signal and far away from the universe. And we are which we'll see that we are in 2024 in our new telescope. It's very exciting. We are waiting for that.
I mean, the study of physics, in a way, represents humans exploring the world that we live in. And with the next group of guests, we'll discover how curiosity makes the life different. Over to you now.
Okay, thanks for introduction, Professor Hopcroft. Do you think curiosity is very important to human being?
Yes, no, curiosity is really what drives basic science. And maybe I should say a word about the difference between basic science and applied science. It has nothing to do with how fundamental the science is. It has to do with why you're doing it. And applied research is research you're doing because there's a specific goal in mind. You're either helping the government or a company with some specific goal. But basic research is different. It's research that you're doing because you're curious about something, and you don't think of what the applications might be. What has really been one of the best investments ever made is the investment in basic research. In applied research, you may advance the field a little bit in trying to solve that problem, but you're not going to create a whole new area of science. But in basic research, people go off in all kinds of crazy directions. Yeah. Now, many of them don't do anything really fundamental, but occasionally, someone does something that creates a whole new discipline for you. And that creates companies and millions of jobs. And the return on basic research is one of the basic investments a nation can make. So curiosity is really fundamental.
I think curiosity is what really drives my career. So when I was young, I think it's only 8 years old, and then I know that the world is made up by atoms. So there comes questions. Could we see the atoms, and how large is the atoms? So these is questions always kept in my mind. And when I grow up and I was a high school student, then I know there's maybe a possible technology we can directly see the see the atoms. And then I do the bachelor student, and I really have a chance to use the aberration-corrected transmission microscope. That chance I do see, I really see the single atoms there. So then I just fall in love with this machine. And when I was a master student, and then I have a chance to get scholarship from the Chinese government, and I do the PhD in Ulm University in Germany, and then I also had the chance to use the most advanced chromatic aberration-corrected microscopes there. So that time I can really see the atoms, and beyond this, we can use electron to control these atoms.
What do you think? What do you think technology or algorithm is making our lives better or worse? How can we deal with this negativity?
Yes. But before I answer that question, I'm going to just point out that it's great that you enjoy your job, because journalism is very important. And I always learn something on these things, and that curiosity is what drives journalism. So it's good. But coming back to your question, whenever there's a new technology or science, it has good and bad to it. So algorithms are going to cause some problems, and a lot depends on how we use them. Because I notice that some news organizations now send you the news that you want to hear. And that means we're not going to get the full spectrum of the world. And today, there's a lot of false information. And if governments are going to make the right decisions, they have to have the support of the general population. And so you're going to play a critical role in our future, because we have to educate a vast majority of the population for things to go well. And whether algorithms are going to make the world better or not may depend on you. I think education is the key issue. And it's not necessarily education in universities or schools, but it's education from TV, from newspapers, and now from social networks, because half of the world's population gets their news from social networks. Journalism is going to play a key role in making algorithms do well for society.
Thank you, Jingjing, and that's our group floor. We really have a great time to hear this informative conversation, and this our group floor who discussed the curiosity, which, in my opinion, gave birth to science and make everything that followed possible. For more, let's now turn to our next group of guests for their insight on the interfaces of science, liberal arts, and social issues. Over to you now.
And my question goes for both of the professors here. Do you see a point for young people, especially young people like me, whose work or like the study area has nothing to do with any science subjects or mathematics? Do you see a point of us keep learning more math or other science subject even after college, even it doesn't directly related to what we do?
Okay, so I think there are totally two different concepts. One is a professional science, the other is a popular science. So if you are working in professional science, you should keep working on your subject, on your field. But the popular science is very important. So basically, it's more like education. So it can try people to understand more latest development in science. So today, there are many cases people cheat others in the name of science. Actually, they are pseudoscience. But the popular science, it requires some very special people. They should have a fair scientific background and also very good communication skills. So you can talk to general public in layman language very easily. So we need to invest more resources to popular science.
Professor Zamanov, if a children doesn't seem to have too much interest in science or not too much talent, what should parents do?
I will say mathematics is a very old subject, more than 2,000 years old. And for 2,000 years, it has been difficult. Even mathematicians find it difficult. So if somebody tells you that they know a way to teach mathematics without efforts, don't believe them. Whether I understand that some children are more maybe gifted in mathematics than other children. It's like in every area. Some children are more musical than other children. Whether they should still make effort and learn mathematics, but if they do not, they cut many options in the future. They probably won't be able to become good engineers or go to insurance business or banking. So many works and jobs in the world are now linked to mathematics. They should not cut it at the early stage. I also met people who were not interested in mathematics and did badly and then suddenly became great mathematicians.
And my next question, I want to quote a statement from the People's Bank of China. In a report, it claimed that too many liberal arts students will push the country into middle-income trap. And this has created the whole, a very interesting debate in the society.
You know, in 2008, there was an economical crisis in the United States, and many people lost their jobs. And at that year, we noticed a thing at the University of California. The number of mathematics majors increased 5 times suddenly. Students started to think about future jobs. I know that there is a strong push also in California to remove difficult parts of the STEM education. That's populism. You know, we live in the digital world. We are living through informational revolution, which is rooted in mathematics, which is related to all the sciences, and that changes our life. Life will force us to strengthen STEM education.
And that's all 5 group of our guests today. I mean, we talked about science and humanity, culture, and art. And those are all ingredients of a great life. The universe might want to hold us a secret just a little longer, but we humankind never stop looking. Amazing and inspiring dialogues between the World Laureates and Gen Z, and I hope you all had a good time. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Yang Zhao in Shanghai. Don't forget to leave the comments on CGTN's Weibo, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And that's dialogue between World Laureates and Gen Z, presented to you by CGTN. Bye for now.